Hello and good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm here with a guest we haven't had on in ages, and I've missed him, the Thunderous One. And he sent me some very disturbing material related to something that's happening in the USA, but as well in Britain. And we're going to talk about a video where Muslims are talking about how they're going to start building their little exclusive Muslim communities, how they're going to discriminate against non-Muslims, the clever tricks they'll use. And I think it's worth talking about. And yeah, perhaps we can talk about the state of the UK, because things are not okay in the UK right now. So Thunderous, welcome. Good to have you back.
Hi, everybody, and I'm certainly glad to be back with yourself, Lord. I know you've been a busy man doing a lot of interviews and discussions on the Bible. So here we are again. Hopefully we can go back to our little routine of maybe a chat once or twice a month moving forward in the future. But yeah, got an epic discussion, excuse the pun, to go through today.
Yeah, no, exactly. So things are going swimmingly. I believe I saw in the Guardian today a big article about Starmer has failed to stop the migrant invasion of Britain, even though he promised he would smash the gangs. Seems the gangs have smashed him, and now you've had, I think, over 1,400 migrants in one day yesterday, something like that.
Yeah,
Let me
I think
find
it
the
was
article.
Yeah, I think it was about 1,200 is the reported figure. That's the ones that they know about. As you say, the Prime Minister is under a lot of scrutiny because one of the things he got elected in was the phrase smash the gangs, smash the gangs, smash the gangs. Nothing's happened. In fact, ever since that he's taken over as leader of the country, there's been an increase in the number, record increase in the number of immigrants that are coming over on the boats. England have been paying France considerable millions as a contribution to try and stem the flow of immigration, but instead we're finding record numbers coming over. One or two members of certain news channels have gone over to interview people over there and actually physically observed what's actually taking place, where the French are actually in effect doing nothing. They're basically allowing, almost giving a channel and a free pass for the people to leave Calais and to come over
Well,
on their boat.
it benefits the French to just let it become a British problem.
Yeah.
The simplest way to deal with this is stop paying benefits, deny all benefits, don't give them five-star accommodation in the best hotels in England, don't give them accommodation in castles in Scotland and Wales, in places that we couldn't dream of living in on our salaries. Just deny them those benefits, put them on an island somewhere in the Shetlands where there's nothing but tumbleweed, put them in tents, and don't allow them to bring their family members. Don't give them five-star everything, and that'll solve the problem overnight.
Well, the problem you've got now, I think it was about a month ago, where the government announced very slyly and only mentioned it once, and it hasn't really been picked up by many people. As you know, Lloyd, I work in the mortgage industry. What's happening is that the immigration hotel facility is now going to be extended to landlords. So the private landlords in the country will now have the opportunity to apply to have immigrants come into and reside in their properties. Now, this is causing major problems. One of the problems that we're seeing is that current landlords that have tenants are now looking for excuses and ruses in order to give notice to their current tenants in order to house immigrants. One of the benefits is you'll get an X amount of money coming in from the government. Two, it's a 5-year contract. So at the very minimum, you've got a 5-year contract with the government, who are then going to pay for the next 5 years. They're also going to be paying
for all maintenance. They give you increased rent.
Increase the rent, and also at the end of the contract. Now, let's pretend for a moment it's going to be a 5-year contract. If the house is going to be in an unsuitable condition, what are the government going to do? Same thing with the hotel. They're going to come into the property and they're going to renovate the property and put it back to a suitable standard for accommodation or a presentable redecoration. So,
and you already have a major housing shortage in the UK.
Well, this is
you've also just minted. Sorry, brother. You've also just minted your first migrant billionaire this year.
Yeah. So you can see that there was a problem recently with the government. I think maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, where the landlords were moving away from actually having properties in order to and to sell them, because they were going to be taxed on the gross, not the net, as far as the income from the property was concerned. So that put a lot of landlords off in keeping the properties. They were going to try and sell them off and perhaps make investments elsewhere. But this will have a social U-turn now. In fact, you're going to find people wanting to buy properties in order to rent them out to put immigrants in. And there's nothing to say how that structure works, because are you renting out the property, or is the revenue going to come in per person living inside the house? So instead of, say, a house that you can get maybe £1,400 for a month, as an example, if it's got 4 bedrooms, will you then actually be able to say, well, I want £1,000 per immigrant that's inside the house, and let's say you could put 3 immigrants inside the house, which will be a revenue of £3,000 per month. Then you've got the maintenance, all the bills will be paid, and then, as I say, it's a 5-year contract, and at the end of the contract, the house will be renovated by the government.
Wow.
Can anybody see a problem with this? And all this will do, the fact that the government has advertised this, what do you think will happen in France and Calais now? What do you think is going through the
border? Surge to the border.
You've just basically advertised, we're going to house you for free. Now, I don't know if I'm sure many of the audience are aware of this, because this was picked up as well, that the immigrants that are in the country are getting tickets to go watch football games. They're getting DJ lessons. They're getting funds to go on tours. They're getting yoga lessons. They're getting driving lessons, as well as clothing, as well as a mobile phone, and on top of that, they get
some kind of. And are you paying for that with your taxes?
It's the working class, the people at the bottom end of the totem pole.
You know, because the amount, I mean, I think Britain has the most millionaires leaving than any other Western country.
Yeah. And this is where, before we came on there, and for the audience's benefit, I did say to Lloyd, in my estimation, when you're looking at Europe, all these things are by design. I do not see them as accidental or coincidental or unrealized. For me, there is an end game strategy that is allowing the benefit, that there's an end game, that this immigration is going to cause an upset that requires a further escalation into this end game strategy, whatever the strategy may be. So that's where I'm at with this. I see this thing as deliberately orchestrated.
Yeah, Sergeant Grinch says, bring yourself and your wealth to the USA. And Just Janice, who's from the UK, is it's disgusting. It's a huge problem, and she agrees with you. She says it's 100% true. Janice, if you'd like to come on for a minute or two to give us your thoughts, you're very welcome. Just drop a comment in the chat, and I will we'll send you I'll drop the link. And in fact, let me just drop the link in the chat, and you're welcome to hop on, Janice. You're very welcome to come on for a few minutes and just give us your thoughts. Would that be okay, Thunderous?
Absolutely. It's always good to have another person.
And she says,
while we're waiting for Janice, I think it's worth adding as well that more and more people are beginning, and they're not beginning to see this, because I think discerning people would have recognized this a couple of years ago anyway. But what we are now seeing, and sometimes I'll go to certain videos, not necessarily for the video, I want to look at the comments to see what the consensus is. And more people are realizing, from what I see, is that there's an end game strategy in all of this as well. That this is all quite deliberate and orchestrated. Also, on top of this, so not only are the indigenous of the country being affected by the things that are taking place as far as immigration is concerned, but the laws that are being set up as well in order to, marginalize those that have an opinion about what's taking place in this country as well. So, for instance, things about free speech, comments on social media, they're designed to stifle and shut down any criticism. So it's not operating on one thing. This thing that's happening in England is operating on many levels.
Yeah, and it's all favors Islam, which is very, very disturbing. Yeah, definitely something that is very uncomfortable. And there seems to be, as you said, a preference for outsiders, a preference for third world outsiders, especially Islamic ones, and the government seems to be sidelining its own working class people, its population, its natives. It really seems to be this 2-tier thing, 3-tier, 4-tier is so explicit at this point. And I mean, the UK is at the moment arresting 30 people per day for social media posts.
Yeah.
This is, let me see, in Cuba, I believe there's something like 2,300 people in prison, political prisoners. The UK is arresting 900 a month. And they're emptying the prisons of violent offenders like rapists and murderers to put social media posters into prison.
That's what you just said there was what my next point was going to be. In order to put people in prison, you have to have the prison facility in order, or spaces for them to go into prison. So what they're doing now is creating a system where people are in prison. If they've got a certain number of years or months left on their sentence, they're being let out free but being put on a tag. Or certain crimes now may not even warrant a custodial, which is alarming when you consider that all you're having is an opinion against a narrative that cannot be reconciled with logic or history or experience. And yet people having opinions are now considered more dangerous than, say, somebody downloading, like Hugh Edwards, the BBC News reporter, who was downloaded Class A child porn material, not getting a custodial. Can we consider
he got a suspended sentence, got sent home with a pat on the back.
Yes. Can you consider how serious that is? What kind of mindset that person kind of has? He may have been arrested and charged with obtaining child pornography, but we do not know if there's been any physical interactions. That's speculation. But what you have to think to yourself, well, if you're downloading that kind of material, what does that kind of tell you about the person and what their desires are? And we don't know if those desires have been manifest at any point in history.
Well, I mean, we do. But don't play a movie in public, or you'll go to prison for 18 months in solitary, and they'll clear 24 cells around you to make sure that you're isolated.
Well, this is the problem. There you go. This is what you can't comment on or have an opinion on, because you're exposing the lunacy of how the people at the bottom end of the totem pole are being put in a pressure cooker, where it's slowly the heat is being incrementally increased. At some point, there's going to be a point where it reaches critical mass. I think you and I were discussing earlier on about there's going to be what you call a kickback or a pushback.
Well, Dr. David Betts is the premier expert on, shall we say, social unrest, and he advises governments around the world. And he has stated that he anticipates major social unrest up to potentially civil war in the UK in the next 5 years. Says there's a very high chance of that. He says that he also senses that the Islamic population is preparing for this, so they are well along in preparation for dealing with this, which means that I would assume that they're anticipating it, because they realize that what they're doing is going to lead to that. And they're following their plan, and they've got a contingency in mind. But one thing that they don't seem to think about is that, sure, maybe the local population and the government seems to be on the side of the foreigners, not the natives. But there's a reason they're called the minority, whereas within the majority population, if that thing goes, if it goes nuclear, then you look at potentially igniting the whole country, and that's a lot more people. And eventually they will overcome their disadvantages, and just through sheer force of numbers, there will be, I think, potentially a very strong backlash. And if you look at the Danes that invaded in the past, they've effectively been wiped out. The Brits rose up and effectively exterminated them to such a degree that they are effectively removed from the British DNA, from the bloodline. They were so thorough in getting rid of the foreign occupier. Just a thought.
The thing I will counter with you on that one, Lloyd, is the mindset of the enemy that you're taking on. You and I both know that. I think with the indigenous population of this country, the violent kickback, as it were, I can't see what kind of human being it's going to come from. In the sense of my generation, I would say will be the last of the belligerent violence. You'd say, you think of, say, the 70s, 80s, 90s of the soccer hooligans, that kind of, we've had so many laws put in place now that stem the flow of people being aggressive and violent. So you don't see that kind of violence manifest in the English culture anymore. The pubs are not there. The clubs are being reduced. I can't see how there's going to be a kickback. And what I mean is that when you compare it with the Islamic community, and if you think about the number of people that are immigrants that are coming into the country, you don't know where they come from, and you don't know who they are. You do not know what their military experience is, if they've got any. But also with the indigenous, they're not willing to strap a bomb to their chest and go marching off into a crowd and let it explode. Whereas the ideology of these people allow for it. That's where I think that the problem is going to be, that how far are people of this country going to go in order to, in this kickback, because you already know the mindset of the enemy, how far they are prepared to go, because they've manifested that already over the years.
Right. He says here, David Betts writes here, this is in Military Strategy magazine, Civil War comes to the West. He's this is 2023, so this is what's predicted at least 2 years ago, but he's spoken about it much more recently. Even this year, he's had several talks on that. And he says, you know, things are coming. We're looking at civil wars, and he expects the next few years. So I don't know. I mean, but look, there's unease. Imagine you have another Southport. And remember, Starmer lied and claimed that these were far-right agitators that came in from abroad and came in from all over the place, came in from all over Britain. First of all, the evidence, I mean, the police released a report. I was watching it last week being discussed in the UK news. It was not far-right agitators. It was locals, and the distance they came was all of 12 miles maximum. So it was locals and people who work in the area who were there. And so there was no bussing in of any foreign agitators. It was all locals who were very upset because their community had just been brutalized. You had a young man, a Welsh choir boy, sorry about that, a Welsh choir boy, and who, I mean, he attacked one girl. He stabbed her 122 times, I believe, brutally. He tried to sever her head. So he hacked at her head like multiple times to try to take it off, and then he stabbed her. I mean, why do you need to stab a 5 or 6 year old girl that many times? I mean, this is brutality beyond any kind of reason, and so there's a hatred there, and people are reacting to this. I mean, I think, and you know, it's Lucy Connolly's in jail for 31 months for putting on a tweet on this, expressing her anger, which she deleted and apologized for. She still goes to jail. And Hugh Edward gets to walk home after having child porn, you know, for years. Great.
I think the word justice is it's an arcane value now. I can, and the legal system in this country, particularly with the police. If you live in the UK, I think we've got to the point now where I don't think people, well, certainly I don't know how the audience may respond. But the police are not what they were 5 or 10 or 15 years ago, and they weren't even that good then. So if we go back to, say, the 80s and the 90s, it's probably, in my estimation, the last vestige of the policeman that actually was sincerely in his role to do a job, to protect the community, and to, you know, to use the American phrase, to protect and to serve. After that, I think we've seen a dynamic change within the legal system, not just with the laws that take place within courts, but also how law is meted out on the street as well, the type of person that the legal system are recruiting to represent them as police officers. That hasn't helped in the way things are in this country. I'm surprised to a certain extent that vigilantism hasn't actually started to manifest itself in certain situations, because the police are basically useless. There are so many crimes taking place in the country today where, to give an example, I think if you've been watching English news, Lloyd, then you will know that there's a profuse amount of video showing people going into shops and basically cleaning shelves and just walking out with goods with immunity. And they get the impunity to do that because the police won't arrest them unless it's the theft is of a value of £180 or more. Well, for starters, how can you estimate what's in the basket? How do you know what it's worth when they go to the shops and steal? So when the people in this country are seeing more and more laws, and it's not normally the white indigenous that are causing the crimes, it's those not of white origin, then, to put it politely, or people from an immigrant background that are committing these kind of crimes. So not only are they seeing that laws are enacted to benefit people that don't originate in this country, but they're watching crimes being committed by people that don't originate in this country and still benefiting.
Right.
And yet, as you say, somebody can put out a tweet and be arrested and fast tracked. So not only just put in prison, Lloyd, they were fast into prison.
I mean, they'll come to your house and arrest you. I mean, here was a 71-year-old former policeman, a former detective that was arrested for putting out a tweet defending Israel against Palestine because people were talking about genocide, you know, pro-Palestinian tweets talking about Israeli genocide, and he commented on it. He got arrested, and of course the officers were looking at his books and said there's very Brexity books on his bookshelf, and of course he was released, and now I think they're paying him out £20,000 as compensation. But also apparently in the same neighborhood that he lives, it could be the wrong one, but I was reading a report that in that same neighborhood there was something like 400 car break-ins and burglaries in the last 2 years or something, and not a single one has been solved, not one.
Yeah.
But they could send 6 officers to go arrest a 71-year-old man who, over a tweet, who was criticizing Palestine.
Well, there was a case, I think it was about 2 weeks ago in this country, where I think 3 or 4 police officers went into a care home and questioned a man in a wheelchair that had one leg amputated or partially amputated. He had a bread knife in one hand. If he's in a care home, one has to assume that there must be a certain amount of dementia that the 96-year-old suffers from. Mm-hmm. They tried to kick the knife out of his hand. This is a guy in a wheelchair with an amputated leg. And they tasered him. They tasered him. A 96-year-old man was tasered. What kind of threat would a 96-year-old man have in a wheelchair with a bread knife and an amputated leg? This is where I'm saying the kind of police people that we have today are not the kind of police people that we had when, say, I was a naughty boy in my teens, because I got in trouble with the police. But those police are not the police that we have today.
You know, there's a question from Harry here. Are the political leaders scared to take a stand? Don't you think that, I mean, there's a saying that if you make too much of a separation between your fighting men and your thinking men, you'll have your fighting done by idiots, and your politics will be done by cowards. Right? Something like that. There's a saying of this type. But don't you think that the UK politicians are really just managing the decline rather than doing anything, because they're such cowards, or they've sold out to the agenda, that they're too afraid of the damage, the civil war that may erupt, the social violence that may erupt if they go and speak out against the problem. So they would rather just hand over the country than actually see civil war erupt and see violence erupt, and then they have to deal with that. So they'd rather just go with the program and let it slide and hand over the country, just like the Chagos Islands. I mean, that's incredible. Paying $18 billion to another country to take property off your hands that you're giving to them, and then you say you don't have $500 million to pay for heating for your elderly. I mean, that is crazy, you know.
None of it financially makes sense, not at all. I would just like to add, because I've just done a little bit of research, the 92-year-old amputee was also pepper sprayed. So a 92-year-old amputee sitting in a wheelchair in a care home with a butter knife was tasered, pepper sprayed. You're looking at that one now. It's Sky News.
Okay, police are not guilty of assault on 92-year-old amputee. They are not guilty of assault after was pepper sprayed and tased at his care home. They denied using excessive force. And the jurors returned. Yeah, this guy looks threatening. Definitely, I can see. Yeah.
If you watch the video, I'm not suggesting you do it now, but if you could, I suppose, if you want. But it's actually quite alarming.
It says, do as you're told. Hang on, let me actually just stop sharing and let me just start sharing again, but with audio, because they tell him to do as you're told. I'm just going to share my entire screen, share the audio. It's giving me this problem again where it doesn't want to share the audio. I hate when it does that. Let me just try and Sussex Police, also share audio. There we go. And he's going to tell him, do as you're told. Let's see. Let me share this. It should play the audio now.
Do as you're told. Put it down. Put it down. Donald, put it down.
Seriously?
Last chance.
Can you just hold that door? I can't get a good angle.
Donald, put it down. Put it down now. Come on.
Last chance.
Right. Put it down. Drop the knife. Drop the knife. Put it on the floor.
They've already
Do it now. Drop
they've
the
pepper
knife.
sprayed him.
Donald, drop the knife.
Donald.
Down.
Oh my God.
Put it down.
Taser, taser.
Lloyd,
We'll just-
the guy was 92 years old. Do you really think he was coptus mentis to understand what was going on? He's got human beings standing in front of him, shouting at him.
I was watching Rambo and Rambolina risking their lives to deal with the dangerous. I mean, that guy was the Joker. He retired. They found the Joker who'd retired, and they were going to take him into Gotham.
And this is what we're seeing with people like this. If you remember, for the audience, they may remember the police officer that got into trouble for being aggressive about arresting, I think it was a 16-year-old girl who said that the police officer reminded her of a lesbian nana.
Yeah.
And they went around mob heavy to arrest that girl. And that police officer was then seen a couple of weeks later, filmed using pepper spray on a crowd quite aggressively. This is happening time and again and again. So this goes back to my comments about the type of police that we've got in this country now. And for those who are, say, age 40 and older, you may remember the police that were around in the 80s and 90s. There is no way that those police officers would behave the way that these police officers are behaving today. In those days, when crimes were committed, the police force looked to resolve those crimes. Today, it's almost like on a sheet as to, well, does it warrant an investigation? For instance, shop theft, car theft, common assaults and things. They are more interested in arresting people for misgendering and using the wrong pronoun than they are for child pornography. That is telling you how seriously deficient, it's kind of way I can put it, I suppose, the legal system is in this country. I think even using the word legal is probably inappropriate. There's nothing that is more lawless than it is lawful.
Wow, this is insanity. Wow. I mean, to see what they did with that 92-year-old, they could have just. I mean, the guy pulled out his stick to start beating the guy. I mean, how hard would it have been to just go around the side? I don't know, grab the guy, grab the hand or something. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Or just leave him alone until he gets tired and falls asleep.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly. They could have just walked out of the room, closed the door, leave it 5 minutes, and the guy himself may have not even remembered what had happened 5 minutes previously. And he's 92 years old and he's in the care home. What exactly was the threat? He had an amputated leg. What did they think he was capable of doing?
I know. I mean, who knows why? But we don't know why they were sent, and maybe it was a danger to himself. Who knows? But yeah.
There's a comment in the chat. LOS strategy. Yeah, the UK is a canary for the rest of us. Cool. So I think that's quite a good comment to make. You know, the canary in the mine. You know, as people would know what the phrase means. It's alluding to where the miners will take little canary birds into the mines, because if the bird died, then they knew that there were dangerous gases in the area, and then they'll know that they were to leave the mine shaft.
I want us to wonder what's going on, what is happening in the UK. Yeah, so just Janice said she's having problems with her phone. This app does work on the phone. I've tried it a few times, tested it, of course, and had people on. But yeah, maybe but she said she'll try the laptop. Okay, so yeah, should we play that video that we were talking about earlier? Hey, look what just happened. Hello,
Hey,
Janice. Welcome. Janice, can you hear us and see us? We can see you, Janice.
I can hear her clear her throat.
Janice, are you there?
Hi, can you see me? I don't know.
Yes, we do. We do. We
Oh
do.
no. Oh. Yes, I am here. Yes, finally. I might lose a signal. I'm not
Hello
too
and
sure.
welcome.
I might do.
Yeah, the signal's a little choppy, but you're there. So can you turn your phone sideways to see if
Thank
we get a
you. God bless
sideways
you all,
image? Would that be
and,
okay? Yes.
It's my signal, Lloyd, I'm afraid.
Okay. Yeah, but good to have you. Yeah, so you're in the UK.
Hold on. I don't know. I'm upside down now. That might be a bit better.
It's fine.
Is that
It's
better?
looking good. It's looking good, Janice. Yeah, just put it down somewhere and then. But yeah, looking great. But really nice to have
Yes.
you.
I've missed most of the conversation.
So sorry. No, we just saw the police. Two police.
Yeah.
Up,
Good.
Hayes and.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It took me ages to get on, I'm afraid.
Yeah, tell us your experience of the UK. Some of the things that Thunderous was talking about.
Sorry, I'm just losing my volume. Hold on. Yeah, all good. Yes, it was a discussion about the UK. I'm probably pleased that I didn't get on straight away because it was just making me really angry. So, and everything that Thunderous One was saying is absolutely true. It's 100% what he was saying, you know.
So give us your thoughts as a woman who lives in the UK, the changes you've seen and your feelings on that.
I'm very fortunate in a way to live. I don't live in a city. I'm quite rural. So the sort of areas that I live in, even though we hear a lot, we're about to see a lot very soon. It just hasn't sort of all arrived where I happen to live. So yeah, but what's happening here is it's just I don't know what words to describe. Horrendous, really. That's all I can say. Horrendous.
Janice, are you familiar? And you sound like you're an informed lady. Are you familiar with? There was an article in the news maybe about 2 months ago of a certain village that had about 600 occupants in the village, but there was a military base there that they moved about 700 immigrants to. And what they've noticed now is that these immigrants are willfully and unchaperoned or unguided, walking around the village, and they've got them on ring doorbells where they're trying to open cars, trying to open people's houses, and making people that are normally out in the village walking their dog, go jogging, making them feel particularly uncomfortable. And the residents there are feeling threatened. And the byproduct of that has been that those residents want to move out of the village, but they can't move out of the village because nobody's purchasing the house. So in effect, what the government have done, they've trapped them there unless they sell the house at a reduced market value.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is,
yeah, I did see that about. I can't remember where the village was actually, but I actually did watch about that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this one. Looks like this is one of them, and this is in the home counties. There's an RF Weathersfield near Braintree, Essex. They do not feel safe walking the streets and country lanes at night due to the threat of antisocial behaviors. The village of 707, and they've got 800 migrants.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's got to be some real. This is where I think these things are a part of a strategy, because you've got to know that when you're housing a certain number, 100 of men in an environment where there are no females, and they're young, dumb, and full of cum, as the phrase goes, what are you expecting to happen? What do you to women in the local
They're
area?
nice people. It's a village life, you know, so they'd be quite pleasant.
You know, so there's going to be some kind of response from people in the village, but what will happen is that response will be then looked at as being some kind of prejudice or xenophobic. Then you add on things like the school in Milton Keynes, where parents were concerned about men filming children at the school, but it was when the police
do that all the time? Don't you hang outside schools with kids and film them? Don't you do that routinely? And apparently, the reason that they do this is they send that to their friends and say, "Hey, look at all the young meat that you can find here in the UK."
Yeah. And the police say it's cultural. There's nothing to be concerned about. These things are cultural. That's what the response was in Milton Keynes.
Why isn't it cultural to go out there for the dads to go out there and beat the crap out of these guys?
Yeah. Well, that's a question in itself. That this is where where I think it's there is a pressure building up that's going to get to a point of critical mass. And all these things are contributing to it. If you go back to a couple of months ago when we were discussing things like the FGM clinics in this country, that very few people are aware about, that we've got over 20 female genital mutilation clinics operating in this country on the NHS, but nobody's supposed to question and investigate the number of, for you to have 26 in the country should inform people of the magnitude of the problem, that there is an illegal practice being of mutilation inflicted on females against their will, which is unrepairable. You can't rectify the damage once it's been done, and it's likely carried out by human beings that don't have any medical training. So it's been done in a non-clean environment. So there's a lot more to this than just men coming in on boats. There's so many other things that one has to add into the whole narrative.
Yeah, man, that is crazy stuff. That is, yeah. But also, we were going to talk about a video, because the whole idea, like Epic City in Janice seems to be having problems. She's disconnecting and trying to reconnect and gets disconnected. And thank you, Ignatius Apologetics. He says, "May God bless you all this Sunday. I've been watching your discussions on Calvin and logic, Lloyd, quality stuff. Your work is appreciated. Sad to see how much Islam is destroying Europe." Yeah, it's frightening. And will there be another crusade? I mean, I think everyone can feel that the wind is blowing in a certain direction. And yeah, there's going to come a point where people have to make a decision, because integration has not happened. And the problem is entrenched. And the only way to deal with it now, if there's no political will be force. Unfortunately, I don't see another solution. And of course, they could still do it. You could just cut the funding straight away, cut the funding. And you may have to change some laws to say, look, sorry, we're throwing you out. But every migrant that arrives eventually brings an average of 6 to 7 family members. So if you have 1 million people a couple of years from now, you're going to have 7 to 8 million people. That's just how that works. So if they say 10 million have come in, well, very shortly you're going to have 70 million. So beware.
And the thing is, when they're gaining in certain areas political office, where they're becoming mayors, where they're becoming MPs and gaining political traction, then you know full well that any decision they make is going to be for the benefit of the community that they come from and not the country that they've been elected in. So you've got another dynamic of political influence in the political infrastructure that's going to be benefiting and aiding and abetting, for one another, a better phrase, the situation that's already in the country.
Have you seen the videos where the Muslims are now saying we no longer are a voting bloc for liberal parties? We need to start our own parties.
Yeah.
We need to vote in our own politicians, and we will take over the government. I mean, some of those videos I watched the last couple of weeks, very disturbing. So the demographics, the dynamics are changing, and that's Sorry, Janice. So Janice lost signal. So. But yeah, should we bring on that video and then just talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah, so this is a video Thunderous brought to my attention. It's like the Epic City video with Yasser Qadi in the US, but it's happening also in the UK. But let's watch this. It's only 7 minutes long. We'll play it in sections, and Thunderous will add commentary.
Is doing not just in the UK, not just in the USA, across. This is what the Muslim community is doing, not just in the UK, not just in the USA, across the world, for the Muslim community.
I've thought about why don't we do something like this? Why don't Muslims get together and do something like this? But I've always thought it was impossible, which is to create a community within UK, USA
Stop there.
for Muslims.
So when it says create a community, do we not already have a community? Are there not communities of Muslims within, say, Luton or Leicester or Birmingham or Bradford and such? So the communities are already there.
There's too many non-Muslims around for their taste.
So it's the word. Look at the language. When he's using the word community, is he using the word community that we understand the word community, or do they have another interpretation of what community means? Because as far as community is concerned, the way that we understand the term, there are communities already in existence. So, what do you think?
Yeah, but the mask is coming off. It's starting to show its face. The Middle East is now being transplanted. And Britain is becoming the third world. It's becoming the Middle East. And we're seeing the truth coming out. The agenda is now that they've got a critical mass, they are enacting the agenda. That's all. Yeah, they want to establish their caliphate, and they'll expand it and expand it and expand it. And they expect you to submit. You there, Thunderous?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to play the video again. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Or that's built for a Muslim type of client.
Yes.
Right? Of course, I'm sure you can't exclude people because of religion or whatnot, right?
There are ways, brother, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are very wise ways, but go ahead.
Yeah. So the point is that you acquired land.
Alhamdulillah.
Allahumma barik, where there's a masjid in the middle, and then there are 250 properties that are going to be built.
Probably
around,
more. Yes.
Right around the masjid.
Yes.
You're gonna have gyms that are
segregated.
Stop there.
Allahumma barik.
So already look at the language being used, already segregated, but they're not giving you the terms of what the segregation is. Now, those with experience would know what who the segregated people are. It is moving men away from women. That's the segregation, a form of apartheid, if you like, a gender apartheid. But they can't use that kind of straight language. They've got to hide it and not define what words mean or how words apply. Because if you're applying how words apply, then they're going to get into trouble. So you'll notice that a lot of this discussion is very much in a very presented in a very ambiguous way, so as to not get themselves into trouble.
Yeah, but then they become pretty plain about it. Yeah, so they're going to create segregated gyms, right?
Okay. What amazes me is that you've actually done it, and you sold out all of the plots.
Yes, within 40 minutes.
The 40 minutes was your one.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah, give them the finger, and they will take the arm.
Right. So notice that he said they're sold out in 40 minutes. I think he goes on to say that each plot, the deposit was 50,000. So already you have to ask the question. There are Muslims ready and waiting with funds in their own bank accounts, all ready to invest in something like this. So this is going to appeal to a certain type of Muslim mindset in order to go and live in a community that is purely built around, and as it says there, around the mosque. The mosque will be the central component, the center or the hub of the community, the place of worship. And yet that's sold out within 40 minutes. That should be telling people of what you'll notice this, it's not for the poor Muslims. They're not catering for the Muslims at the bottom end of the totem pole. They're looking for the high class Muslims, the ones that are in office jobs, that are employed in professional environments. Now you can imagine, if you live in a city like this or a town like this, if you're somebody where you don't have to work hybrid, you can work from home. It could be an environment that you don't even have to leave, because everything that you need is there. certainly for women that don't work, they will have no need to leave a town or a city like this, because
Yep.
everything that they need will be catered for by the Muslim community.
But the Muslims don't want them to leave because they want to implement Sharia. So let's have a look at what how they're gonna discriminate.
Oh, that was the other one.
No, so the 40 minutes, they also did it, but they did it second. But they did it all social media announcement. We did it at our house, brother. Nobody even knows about it. Like completely, like brothers like you, close brothers came, brought their friends and family. We told them the mission, and boom, 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 it's done.
And just so people can have like context, like what were the deposits people were giving?
$50,000.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Allah.
Just like that. Boom, boom, boom.
And how big is this project in terms of dollars? Like
Yes, so just those land that we acquired is $6.8 million. And it's 279 acre land. So like you said, brother, masjid, homes, a total Muslim village. So we're still debating on the name, but it's going to be something Muslim name and a village attached to it, right? The names of the streets, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Tariq bin Ziyad, like all the great conquerors. Like people need to Google those conquerors and know like what are we made of. Yeah, like
Islamophobes, they're
Khalid
burning,
ibn
bro.
They're
So,
wanting to name. So go on, you go, Lloyd.
so they're going to make a Muslim village in your heartland on the best property, and then they're going to name all the streets after Muslim conquerors so that people can know what they're made of. They're waving their flag in your face.
It's a big dick contest. That's what it is. They're hoping by giving the names Muslim conqueror names, they're making a statement. We're not going to conquer you with swords anymore. We're going to conquer you by taking over the land, by using your laws against you, which is what they'll go into in a moment. Though they don't say it, but they clearly imply it.
Yeah.
But by using the names of Muslim conquerors, that in itself is a demonstration of a mental disposition and attitude. Not peaceful names, not names of, say, great poets, Muslim conquerors. And they've already got that in their mind. That should tell you the mindset.
That is really disturbing. Yep, let's play further.
Google Tariq bin Ziyad, you know? And then we want to have different sections like Andalusia, this, that, like all our past glories.
Andalusia, our past glories. So they're going to bring back all of their past glories.
And we want to bring it back. The way what we're doing, brother, like you cannot make it exclusive, like non-Muslims not allowed, kufar not allowed. What we're doing, there's something called...
He says kufar not allowed. He called us the kufar. He said it's illegal to have non-Muslims are not allowed, or the kufar, as he called us, the dirty kufar are not allowed. But then he finds a way around that.
Yeah, this
Does
is
it say
clever.
anything? We just...
called association fee. I don't know what it's called in Dubai.
He's going to create an association fee. If you want to live there, you have to pay a certain fee to live in that community.
Like your maintenance fee that you pay yearly,
service
cutting the service fee, to cut the grass, to remove the snow and whatnot. So that service fee will put there 75% of the service fee you're paying goes to the masjid.
So they would automatically not want to come.
Automatically,
Thunderous, 75% of that service fee, the maintenance fee, the levies, will go to the mosque. And what happens?
Well, this is it. If you're, I think they go into why. This is a clever strategy. They have to say that they can't discriminate about people wanting to live into the city or the town or the village that they're going to try and create. They can't make that statement. What they can do is create an environment where nobody would willingly want to go there because of how the funds are going to be used, which is a clever strategy.
I just want to mention Lenten Serendipity says, Bob of Speaker's Corner says Christians in the UK need to organize in this way into Christians communities, not to be lukewarm Christians. His Lenten series covers this in detail. Lloyd, invite him on. The last time I went on Bob's channel, I spoke about the Sharia and he was disputing me on the Sharia, basically disagreed with me on everything regarding the Sharia. And he was less than polite. Let's put it that way. So I was out of context. I was wrong. I was getting it wrong. I was misunderstanding. I just didn't understand. That didn't mean that. And Bob was an expert on the Sharia, and I was wrong. And yeah, so yeah, I wasn't exactly, shall we say, invited back because I'm too stupid to know what I'm talking about, as far as I can tell. So we'll just leave that at that. But anyway, let's talk about that. So let's see what this guy says.
If
here.
you're paying, goes to the masjid.
So they would automatically not want to come.
Automatically, if you are a practicing Christian, I would advise you, why help the Muslims, Let Muslims
crazy.
do their own thing, right? So
Yeah.
this is the way we're going to put the clause. And our attorney already put it there. So we have, brother, think about it. Like a guy comes from Bangladesh, have no idea about anything. Brother, we're putting an application now where we're selecting the names of the streets in the United States of America. We're putting the subdivision laws. Like, hey, this is the law. One of the laws being your yearly contributions, 75% of it goes to support the masjid. That's going to be there.
That's
We're
so
making
funny.
these laws. We're putting those laws. It's unbelievable what Allah can do for you.
Yeah.
They're using the word laws. You have to ask the question: what do they mean by laws? Do they mean laws that are going to be passed through the American Senate, or are they imposing local laws for their own community? And does the word law have to be used? Could it not be rule or guidance or process? Law,
They
when
will
you
use-
talk about
They will use your own laws against you. It's like the Muslim Brotherhood they will turn your own laws against you and take over your country. That's the Muslim Brotherhood ethos.
yeah, but the way that they're talking is that they are going to implement these things within their own community. For instance, as you know yourself, because you're the expert on Sharia law. So what you will have then is an environment where does it really have its own insular law within that community that overrides anything of the national governmental law from the state? So for instance, if you're living in the community in England and you've got this area which is, say, 300 people, 300 properties arranged around a mosque, it's got its own
Gyms, swimming pools,
gyms, swimming
everything.
pools, so on and so forth, shopping, retail environment and such, and people don't really have to leave the community. They have no need for a law that is beyond the border that they live in. All they require is the law of the community that they belong to. So you have to ask the question, well, which law then is the law that they are going to submit to? The law, land of the country they live in, or the law of the government they're obeying? And you'll
they're
notice
finding ways to bypass that law already. So think about it. What else are they doing to bypass the law?
where they're using the law against it. I think they go on to explain it, but how they use the law or people to implement the works that they want carried out. They will go into that in a moment, though.
Yeah. Let's continue with that.
They say what's called verbal manifestations. If you keep saying something to someone, they'll become like that. If you keep telling someone they're a villain, they'll become a villain. People get saying, "Bro, these Islamics are taking over." The masses, you know what? If you keep calling, if you keep saying it,
yes,
I'm actually gonna do it.
No, but you know what's mad is what you just said, bro. Actually, it was mind blowing. You said a guy from Bangladesh comes over to the USA.
Starts naming streets.
Stop naming streets after Islamic.
It's unbelievable. I cannot sometimes even believe it. And I suggested those names, and other people saying, "Why these?
Yeah.
Can we have like normal?"
I ask Allah,
Cordoba
Allah,
Street.
give success to this project.
I mean,
Allah, protect this project and give it success.
And there's no riba involved.
No riba, brother.
No haram.
So we 6.8 million we raised in 40 minutes. Now I'm like, okay, this is happening. This happened, right? And this is another thing. People fear too much, brother. Now you've raised it. Now I have great attorneys. Now we're going to use the kufar when their talent comes in, right? We have the great attorneys. So I hired everyone that the township knows. So they have dealt with this is their boy, their attorney. This is their civil engineer. This is their planning commissioner. I have hired all of them in our team. Now,
you know, it's scary. They call us the kufar.
Yeah.
We're not their friends. We are the kufar, their hated enemy of Allah. I mean, this is disgusting. Just like that.
And the thing is, you'll notice the attitude that they're playing against what they're using these engineers and planning commissions. It's because they recognise that those people, once you've employed them, they're there to do a role. They're not there to make a conscious theocratic decision. They're there to obey laws and to protect their clients. So their bottom line will be the dollar that they get from this community. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. For serendipity, she says, Bob has come around a lot on Sharia. He quotes it himself now. I didn't know you had already had tried to collab. I'm sorry to hear it didn't work out. So serendipity, it's been a while. I cannot remember the exact details, of course, but he was asking me a question that he wanted an answer, but the problem is you couldn't just give the answer. There was a lot of detail that was lacking. There was context I needed to fill in, and I can't remember what it was, but I mean, it's like a question where someone wants a yes or a no, and you can't just give a yes or no answer, not because you're trying to dodge and dance, but it's not, it's like it requires explanation, not just yes or no. So the question is, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, and then you can give the answer 2. It's like, explain to me, all of the details involved in how this project came about, and then, which requires explanation. But he was thinking it's just a 1 + 1 = 2 problem. And why aren't you saying the number 2? It was kind of really backwards and upside down. So anyway, so it did not go well. And yeah, I was less than pleased. If you look at the comment section on that video, people were like, you were attacking Lloyd, you were undermining him, you were constantly, and he was like, no, I didn't. I was very, and yeah, anyway, so, but that's, yeah. So anyway, I had no plans on repeating the experience. So Andy says, I just got here. They're talking about Dallas. No, different community, I think, than Dallas. Muslims have a plan to build a Muslim city in Texas. That was Yasser Qadi. This is a different project. Yeah. Ignatius says, this sounds like a bunch of Darwinian Nazis talking about filthy Jews, but only this time it's Muslims talking about the dirty kufar. And yeah, and Sergeant Groove says, this needs to be shown to the FBI, Homeland Secretary, and Congress. Please, somebody, let me drop the link in the chat. And please, here's the link to the video. And yeah, please, somebody send it off to your local law enforcement. Send it to write to your congressman or whatever it is you do. Any thoughts, Thunderous, before I play more?
No, kind of.
Yeah.
They are submitting the application, because now comes the real world. You got to play it wise, right? So now the township is going to see an application coming from, I'm not going to name his name, like John Smith submitting this application, but it says Khalid ibn Walid Street. Oh my God, what is John Smith thinking, right? But this is what you make John Smith do when you got the money. You hire John Smith and tell him, hey, submit an application as I tell you to submit. Yeah. So
Are you sure this podcast is not going to get you in trouble?
Nothing, brother. I don't care. What are you going to do? So this is another
but
thing.
I want the project to.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. Because the thing is, they're now using see, if you notice, the street names are going to be named after, say, Muslim conquerors. But the average person that's say on the planning commission is not going to look at the name of the person and think, well, let me just do some historical research on what this name is or who this man is. They're getting a contract or an order via a legal system that is not, say, from Muhammad Khan. It's going to come from John Doe. John Doe has a client. So all of the information that is going forward only needs to be relative information as far as the planning commission is concerned. They don't need to know other information. So you can see them using a strategy, whereas I think with Yasser Qadi shot his mouth off too early, and it became obvious what was going on. That's why his plan failed, whereas these guys have come in and thought, well, we're going to do the same thing, but our strategy is going to be different. We're going to be doing this sort of incrementally and under the radar until it becomes relevant, until certain things have become established, and then we can be more vocal about it.
Right.
The manifest.
Of course.
That's where you got to pull out the Constitution.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Freedom of religion.
Exactly, brother.
You man identify as whatever you want, bro. I identify as Khalid bin Walid Street.
Yes.
Okay, within the Constitution of the US, you have freedom of religion. However, Islam is a political system, and you cannot have an antagonistic political system undermining the existing laws of the US. And in this case, these people are clearly operating in bad faith. I would think there's probably a case to be made here. These people are being manipulative. I mean, I think there's a bad faith case to be made here.
But also look at the joy and the glee and the attitude and disposition of these guys as they talk about this. You know, the way that they're laughing and giggling. You know, this to me is also disturbing. The mindset behind these people.
Oh man, Sergeant Gray says I wanted to go for a motorcycle ride to relax, and I'm even more angry. Thanks, Lloyd. I'm so sorry, Sarge. Yeah, let's finish this last minute or so to go on this video. Last minute and a half. Wow, this is, you know, when you sent me this Thunderous, I watched it and I was like, my blood was boiling, man. And it's wow.
This street identifies as Khalid bin Walid Street.
What are you gonna do now? Hurt the street's feelings? Come on, man. Yeah. This is funny. This is good, man.
Look, I don't know what else there is to say, but when you ask yourself what your neighborhood and what your society is going to look like in the next 20 to 30 years, rethink what kind of an area for you in the United States it's going to be. Rethink about what the laws are going to be. Rethink. I mean, boy, oh boy. These guys sit here and joke about property that they are buying for millions of dollars, laws that they are implementing, praising all of it to Allah, as if God is allowing them and giving them the courtesy to be able to do this. It's called an Islamic caliphate, people. I mean, it's really like, hey man, Israel is the only place in the world where being a Jew and a Christian is not a liability. You might have disagreed with me on that before, but after watching this video, you might have to rethink your answer. That's all I got to say. Thank you so much for your support. See you next video.
There you go.
I think, Lloyd, as a commendation to yourself, this is the sort of stuff that you was talking about years ago when you were talking about Arabian money funding the colleges and universities in England and in America. All of that discussion that you had previously, investing in politics and such, lends itself to the discussion that we've had tonight on this video. So, you know, fair play to you, Lloyd. Even though we're discussing this tonight, this discussion has been a byproduct of research that you've done and brought out a couple of years ago.
You know, hold on. You know, there's something. Was it Queen Elizabeth I? I'm not sure. I'm trying to find something. Let me bring this up. I'm not getting what I'm looking for. I'm not able to find the article. Well, let me share something. But I was looking at it a couple of days ago, and for some reason right now I cannot find it. But this is something that might be interesting for you guys to know about. This is the secret history of Elizabeth I's alliance with Islam, right? She had a lot going on with the sultans of Morocco, of the Ottoman Empire, of Istanbul, and so on. And of course, she would write letters to Murad and she'd say, "I am your sister." She was calling herself his sister. She would say that, yes, our religions, yours and mine, that's obviously the Anglican religion at that point. We have far more in common. We are much more alike. We are far more, you know, alike than those evil, nasty Catholics, you know, because we, you know, those impure Catholics, you know, because you and me, Murad, our religions are so similar, very, very similar. Let's make war on the Catholics together. Let me arm your army. Let me train your army. Let's send you soldiers, and let's, when you attack the Catholics, let's stay at home and we'll let you attack them, and we won't send help. You know, we won't send support because we're busy on that day and we can't help defend Europe because we want you to destroy the Catholic and Catholic Europe, and then we'll share Europe together afterwards. But there's also Queen Elizabeth. I'm trying to find the bloody link and I can't find it now. I was looking at it of Queen Elizabeth. We're talking, she had not the most recent Queen Elizabeth, but she had Muslim assistants. She had two guys who were Muslims who were like her right-hand men. If someone can find me the right reference, because I just can't think of what it is right now, but the Muslims and the, I mean, look at Othello. Othello, what Othello does is, Othello is by Shakespeare, right? It's actually propaganda to present Muslims, the Moor, as the good guy, as the lovely guy, and then Iago, right? For some reason, that is not a British name. Notice that is not a British name. Iago is Spanish. It's actually a smear against the Spanish Catholics. Iago is Saint James, right? And Saint James is known as the hammer of the Moors. He was their patron saint, apparently, when they did the Reconquista. So now you had Shakespeare writing a book about the Muslim as the good guy and Saint James as the bad guy, right? Then calling it a bad thing to hurt the Muslims. Like, will somebody think of the Muslims? And of course, you've got this character, Othello, that is actually based on the Ottoman diplomat that is stationed in London. So you've got this kind of thing happening all over the UK. You've got all of these issues. And now then you had the Queen calling herself the sister of the Sultan. She was called Sultana Elizabeth or something like that. And then also you've got the Queen Elizabeth, who had 2 Muslim close assistants. And so this whole Islam UK government thing goes back centuries.
Well, it comes as no surprise that it'd be a strategic move in order to attack the Catholic Church. That this is a revelation to me. I wasn't aware of this until you've just brought it up now. But the fact that it has that this strategic alliance was for one, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So that's how the alliance could have come about. And for her to be posturing, saying that you're my sister, in order to use them as the sword in order to remove the Catholic influence in Europe. That makes sense. We're seeing very similar today, aren't we, where the Islamic world is aligning itself with the leftist groups that are scattered around the world in order to gain favor and traction politically. How's it any different?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of issues which I will cover going forward as I'm going through the history, but the military alliances, the economic alliances between them is incredible. The depth that these go to. I mean, you look at the deep involvement. I mean, this was treason. This was treason against Christian unity. This was treason against Europe. They were willing to sell Europe out, to literally stab it in the back. I'll give you a point. Like, you look at, you go to the Battle of Vienna, which is the pivotal battle in ending. It wasn't the end of, but that was the pivotal battle in ending Muslim invasion of Europe. Because if Vienna fell, Europe was done. Europe was going to turn Islamic. And the histories always tell you that the Muslims were just these nasty invaders. They came over and it was all their fault. No. It was a Protestant. I mean, in some histories, they'll call him a Lutheran. In others, they call him a Calvinist, but whatever. But what you had a Protestant who went to the Sultan and says, you know what? I want to take Vienna, right? Because I want to be king of Vienna. And what happens is, why don't you guys help me do this? Let's work together. Let's invade. Let's take Europe. And then you can have whatever and I'll have whatever. And we'll live happily ever after. And this is what this guy, Imre Tököly, did from Hungary. That's what he did. He literally sold out Europe, invaded, attacked the Catholics. They split the Catholic forces, weakened the Catholics. And the Muslims thought, yeah, this is a great opportunity to invade. We've tried before, we failed, but now we've got help. We've got a whole army that's going to help us. And these guys are going to harass the Catholics, to destroy their supply lines. Thank God, outnumbered 15-1. The garrison held for 60 days, outnumbered 3 or 4-1. The Catholic armies. Ask yourself a question. Which critical battle in Europe did the Protestants fight? The answer is like none of them. The Catholics fought every single critical battle that saved Europe, every single one. Protestant assistance was anywhere from 0 to maybe on a good day 15%, maybe that much, probably not. So the Catholics were defending Europe. The Catholics held the line. The Catholics pushed them out and suffered for it. And the Protestants would either be really busy that day, and the Swedes, the Nordics, the Dutch, the British, they were like, you know what, gee whiz, I'm actually busy. I'm actually cutting my nose hairs on that day. I really can't come and help defend Europe from Muslim invasion, but call me next week and we'll do lunch, okay? That was they wouldn't pick up the phone. They just weren't, just mysteriously, or they were literally providing weapons to the Ottomans and the Muslim invaders. They were providing military training. They were providing intelligence. They were fighting with them on their ships, in their armies, leading the armies, taking the Muslim troops and saying, let's go and take over Europe, boys, as if the Muslims weren't going to turn on them 10 minutes later. This is what was happening. That's the Reformation. I'll pause there for a moment. Thunderous, yeah, sorry, that's what was happening in the Reformation, as I've been learning.
Well, I can't wait for that series to start then. So with this, the interesting thing as well with this epic center and these villages, it's interesting, isn't it, that they're not willing to do this in, say, Muslim countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan and such. They want to do it in Western countries.
Yeah, it's interesting what Millie dates is. I wonder if the Nazis in Germany despise the Polish as a legacy of the Vienna defeat. That's a very interesting point. That is that's a really interesting point. There's a wonder. There's a question there. King Jan Sobieski. Very, very interesting. Yeah, Thunder. Sorry, back to you.
No, I'm done now. Thank you for the show, Lloyd. Thank you for the opportunity of me coming back on the show and having this discussion with you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Now, this is, look, someone has to talk about this. We need to discuss this. And I think we need to, at least we can talk about it. At least we're not being silenced. At least we can make people aware. And I think it all helps. It keeps people aware of the problem. It means that they aren't simply unaware and then easy victims. And I think it helps. It's what we can do, is to get the word out, to speak the truth, make people aware, and just keep the home fires burning. Let people know that we are concerned about this. Raise the alarm, and at some point, I think there will be a rising up. I don't think this will continue. I think we will push back against it.
Yeah, I agree that there will be a pushback. As I say, I use the term critical mass. There's only so much that Europe and England and by extension Europe can take in all of this. So what I'm thinking is then if the audience are happy with it, maybe we can reconvene at the end of, say, June, and I'll just collect what's been happening and the news items I've been picking up.
Yeah, let's do that.
At the time, and then at the end of June we can come together and discuss what's been happening the previous month.
Yeah, and Ignatius, thank you very much. Things are not well, So, yeah, we need to be unified, unfortunately. But when the Dutch in the past were saying rather a Turk than a papist, which really translates to rather a Muslim than a Catholic, they meant it. And their actions showed this. So this was not just a slogan. When the blacks in South Africa are singing "Kill the Boer," that's what they mean. They mean, South Africa's got problems. When people talk about, no, this is just a slogan. It's like when the Nazis were saying "kill the Jews." Yeah, it was just a slogan. Sure, buddy. I left the country because I'm a black guy, but the blacks don't see me as a tribal black. I'm not one of them, so I become second class to them as well. My neighborhood was attacked. Hundreds of these. I'm trying not to be racist, so let's call them Germans. I don't know. That's also not good. Let's call them. I don't know. We'll call them Albanians. What do you think, Thunderous? We don't want to say black people, because that would be racist. We don't want to say that. So these Albanians who lived in South Africa, they attacked my neighborhood. They threw rocks. They threw Molotov cocktails. They started attacking cars. They put logs and burning branches and bricks across the main road. They cut off access. People couldn't leave. They had burning trees. They had burning logs and fires with tires that were burning. And then they trapped people. Then they threw rocks in their cars. They threw Molotovs into cars. A friend of mine, a security guy, had to pull someone out, sent me the photographs. And then, of course, they burned down my neighbors' houses by throwing Molotovs through their windows. And because the ANC had told them that, remember, they're going to get houses. They need to take their land back, claim back their property. They're stolen. I don't know whose property I stole. I believe I paid for that house myself, but apparently I stole it, and black people were coming from my house. Luckily, there were trees in the back, and they took my neighbors out on either side. My cousin lived 3 doors away. She moved out. These people moved out. They nearly killed 8 people. And I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. Within a month, I was gone. We were done. I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm not taking a chance. So this is not just about white people and farmers. These people are a threat. They're a menace. And this has gone way too far. And when I listen to American talking heads on the news, I just wish they'd shut up. They didn't even know how to say the word apartheid. Apartheid, 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 apartheid. Fuck off. You know, seriously, it's like, honestly, I had to leave. I left the country because it was unstable and dangerous and we could have been killed because my neighbors' houses were gutted. So yeah, people were trapped in the neighborhood. They couldn't get in, couldn't get out. So yeah, these people are dangerous, and so it's not just a slogan. It is turning into a lethal reality. So last rant. That was me, Thunderous. Any final word from you?
No, I just want to say thank you, Janice, for coming onto the show. Sorry things didn't work out. So maybe at the end of June, when maybe yourself and myself can get some information as discussion points for the end of June to discuss, because it would be nice to have you on the show and to speak to you again.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Thunderous. Really good. Thanks all to the audience for having you. Yeah, much appreciated, Janice. Sorry it didn't work out, but next time. Yeah, so guys, thank you all. It was really wonderful. Keep the faith. Honestly, stay strong. Just keep talking. If all you can do is talk about it, talk about it. Let people know, right? Don't let it slip under the radar. Shine a light on it. Okay, shine a light. If that's all you can do, then do what you can, right? All you can do is what you can do. So just do what you can. And don't let the lie slip away. Shine a light on it. That's, I think that's enough. And once the light gets shone on it, eventually people will pay attention, people will wake up, and together you are like little grains of sand, but you can become an avalanche. Honestly, small flakes of snow can become an avalanche. It's your country, you will take it back. Don't let them grind you down. Don't let them believe that you are weak. Don't let them believe you are isolated. So my final word there. So cheers. Good night, everyone. Thunderous, thank you. And God bless, guys. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.